All right, everybody, Nate Hagerty here, and you're listening to the ProMarketer podcast, where whether you are in compliance or, prep, resolution, accounting, any of the other many slices of our crazy tax and accounting industry, we bring you the tools and strategies to market and build your practice like a pro. Part of what I like to do in these sessions is offer to you stories of people that have come from a place that was frustration and kind of toil and are now in a place of thriving. And Andrea MacDonald, my guest today, say hello, Andrea.
Hey, everyone.
She is freaking awesome. And the reason I say that so vociferously, she and I spoke at an event together. And what was obvious to me, before I give you a little bit of her bio, it's just why I've got her on this, is number one, sort of the attitude of serving that she brings to our profession. And there were dozens, scores, maybe like even more than that, of people in the room who were there because of their relational connect with Andrea and the way that she, within various kind of communities in our world, has allowed herself to become a resource to others in our practice space was just stunning and remarkable and unique. And she'd been given a platform and to speak at the stage because of it multiple times. And every contribution she brought to the table was so useful and wise and specific, and she was not running on and listening to herself talk, which is the case with a lot of people who like to hear themselves talk, like myself. But anyway, I just was very... Anyway, I was very impressed with her. And so fun fact, she loves skydiving, yet she's also afraid of heights. And I want to hear a little bit about that in a moment, but that gives you a little sense of the paradoxes in Andrea MacDonald, CPA. So she's got a tax and accounting practice. It's pretty classic year-round tax and accounting practice. And the thumbnail of her journey, I'm going to let her tease it out with more detail, is that she, again, went from sort of underpriced toil and compliance work to a much more scalable, value-based reality where she gets paid well for what she does with the kind of clients that she likes. And so how she got from toil and frustration to the place that she's at now, I want to hear about. She is a wife and a mom to two grown children, which I also want to sit at her feet because her children are launched successfully, and I have one in the middle of launching, and it's not always easy. Yes. And I've got 6 more to deal with. So, anyway. So, Andrea, enough of my intro. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I love talking to people about taxes and accounting, so we could do this all day, every day.
I love that about you. I love finding those places in our world where that is indeed the case, because there are people in our industry who have approached this as kind of like an empire building practice, and they're not craftspeople. They don't like the actual client work. You go on tax Twitter and it's obvious that there's a variety of people that, are in the profession space. They got the degree, they've got the certification, and they're doing their thing, but they could take or leave the clients, right? Yeah. Just give them the stuff. So I gave the snapshot of your journey, and just to be clear, you have never been, and I don't know that you yet will be, a TaxProMarketer client. And this has nothing to do with how awesome we are. You have done this on your own, and I think that's freaking great. And that's my very passive aggressive kind of guilt thing. Trip. Yeah, exactly. We can have a conversation after the podcast episode, where I'm promoting you to thousands of accounts, whether or not you want my help. But
I like your style.
Jokes aside. No, she's done it all on her own, and she's amazing. She's a fellow Virginian. I am transplanted to the Midwest, but I always love connecting with that. All right. So tell your story a little bit.
Yeah. So how far back do you want me to go?
Oh man,
4 and 7 years ago.
Maybe when you launched your practice and kind of what that looked like, startup mode, years of toil, whatever that looked like, and like the ahas that brought you to the new place. And I will probably interrupt with questions as you go.
Yeah, so I worked in accounting departments in private industry, and one day was searching for another job. I just wasn't real happy where I was. And I had kind of an aha moment where I was like, I'm really sick of making money for other people. I work really hard. I like working hard, and I'm making somebody else rich, or at least it felt like they were rich. So I thought to myself, instead of searching for a job, I'm going to search for business opportunities. Let me see what's out there. got to thinking about what I might be good at. Well, my background was accounting, so that was a no-brainer.
What were you doing, just out of curiosity? Accounting in a private industry. So
Yeah,
you were doing like a
government
bookkeeping function,
contractors and
government contractors.
yeah, like a
Okay.
staff accountant type role. I came across the opportunity to purchase a national tax franchise. So I was like, well, I don't have tax experience, but they claim they'll train you. It's similar to accounting. Surely this could be a cool opportunity. So I reached out.
They claim they'll train you. That's an ominous
names on this particular podcast, but starts with an L and ends with Liberty Tax.
Yeah, well, I mean, you are in the Virginia Beach area, so.
I am. And then that's where they were headquartered.
Right.
So I acquired a franchise location, a territory right here down the street from my house. They did provide the training, and it was good training. You know, if any of you have taken an H&R Block tax course, it's just like that. And honestly, I took Federal Taxation 1 in college when I was working on my degree, and it's the exact same class. So it's a college level tax 101 class. Great class. Yeah. Now, whether I should have been owning a tax business with that level of experience is a whole other conversation, but that's how I got my start. I was a franchisee. The first year I had 1 territory. By the second year, I had 4 territories.
Oh my. So you became a master franchisee.
I did. I'm very ambitious. And so aggressive growth is kind of the name of my game. That is not always a great way to operate. And you'd think I would have learned that from that experience, but I didn't learn it the first time. I'm relearning it in my current practice. So I think if I had to describe those times in one word, it would just be tough. Those were some bleak days. Like at the time, I had a full-time job. I was a graduate student. I was a single mom. My kid's dad and I had divorced.
Oh, wow.
And I had this really fast-growing tax business.
Yeah. Multiple seasonal employees, I imagine. Like how many?
Yes.
How many seasonal employees? How many at the time?
Between the 4 territories, between the various tax positions, and then, you know, the other ancillary positions, I had anywhere from 50 to 70 employees.
Yeah.
That some of them came back several years in a row, but usually it was a new batch every time. And in addition to that, when you work for those franchises, often you're responsible for running your own tax schools, training people, then hiring from that pool of people. I don't regret doing it. I learned a lot. It got my entrepreneurial start. Yeah, but I realized after a few years that the franchise model was not the model for me. I didn't want a volume practice. I wanted a more relationship-based practice. And so I went to corporate and said, here, you can just take these back. I'm just going to go do my own thing. And so Pro Tax and Accounting in its new form was born in 2017. And
okay, so this was only like 7 or 8 years ago that you made that shift.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I acquired the first territory in 2013.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the first couple of years of Pro Tax and Accounting were rough. Basically, those of you who've started business probably know this model. Like if you had a pulse and a wallet, you were my ideal client, right? If you could pay me, we were working together.
Right.
That is not a great way to grow a business.
No.
Eventually, you're going to max. I was really aggressively pursuing growth, which is not great when you don't have structure in place.
So what did you do? Like, what were your growth strategies in that stage? Were you going to networking groups? Were you doing marketing offline? I mean, what were you doing?
I spent a lot of time going to marketing groups, making local connections. At that time, we were still largely face-to-face with clients or going to our client sites to do the accounting. We were starting to dip our toes in the virtual world, and it was
And you had transitioned into more of the business owner target client at that point. Like that was the big shift for you from the Liberty model to, you know, what you wanted to do was working with small business owners.
Yep. And even on the tax side, we were onboarding a lot of just 1040 clients, which because I had this focus on this top line revenue number that I wanted to hit, and I wasn't going about achieving that in a smart way, what happened was within 2 tax seasons, we were so overwhelmed with the number of tax clients we had that, and then you add on that all of the tax law changes during COVID times, like it was horrible. I don't think I've ever been so stressed. I was a miserable, heinous, you know what, for 8 months a year. My staff was afraid of me. Nobody wanted to talk to me. I didn't even like myself. So I very much had a moment where I was like, all right, I either need to figure out something that has to change. Like, what can I change to fix this? Or I need to get out of this business. So it was a make it or break it moment. And
Can I pause you and interrupt you for a moment? Because what I love about this moment is the level of self-awareness that you operated in there, because a lot of people, and you know this because you are talking to your peers now a lot more than you used to, from a position of like offering of your experience. A lot of people hit that point, but then they don't actually have the unction to make the shift that you're about to describe that you made. They are allured by the top line revenue numbers. They are allured by kind of the way they've always done things. And making that shift is nigh impossible for certain personalities. And so I want to pause in that moment for a second, because this is a pivot point in your career, this is a pivot point in your life and in your business growth, because what we're about to hear is a shift that was a combination of like serendipity, I think, like where things like certain clients kind of emerged. And I kind of know the end of the story, so I know what you're going to talk about to a degree, but also it wasn't just serendipitous. You had the personal ability to make that change. And maybe it's because you hadn't been doing it that long and we're still sort of in growth lab mode.
Yep.
But I also think there's something that you had to reach for there. What was that? Like, what were you able to, like, how were you able to make that shift to away from accepting any and all with a pulse in the 1040s? Because that's scary.
It is scary. And we're still in the process of fully making that shift. It wasn't like an overnight, we're just immediately completely changing who we work with, right? It's a process to cut clients and find new clients that fit an ideal profile. But it got to the point where, and you're on tax Twitter, you mentioned it when we were in San Diego. There's a lot of complaining on tax Twitter. And when I sat back and thought about how I was feeling in my business and the things I was saying and how I was feeling, it's a common theme in accounting and tax practices where the owners complain about low paying clients, having to have too many clients, not making any money, no profit, just the grind, right? Working 18 hours a day and their crappy health and how they don't have time for themselves. And I'm like, we are all business owners. We have the ability to control our destiny. We can choose who we work with. And so
it reminds me of like bad hazing stories from college fraternities and sororities, the way that CPAs and tax practitioners talk about busy season and like the way that they approach their work. It's like, I went through hell, you're going to go through hell.
Yeah. It's like, you have to pay your dues. Well, I don't agree with that. So that was my aha moment. Like, wait, I have control over this. Derp, I don't have to work with everybody. Who says I had to take on that stupid client that I knew was going to be horrible? Like, why I do this? And for me in the time, so that was about end of 2019, tax year 2020 was our last like really horrible tax season, which wasn't all that long ago. That was my break. Like, I am not doing this again. So I'm either changing or we're getting out of it.
Well, something happened in 2020 that probably also pushed you off the cliff a little bit.
Well,
I don't know.
COVID happened, right?
Did something happen in 2020?
Just
COVID. Right. COVID. Right.
And honestly, in prepping for this, I got to thinking about like pivotal moments in my business and the biggest turning point. And honestly, COVID was the biggest turning point in my business. We were already set up to work virtually. We already knew that we were going about growth in the wrong way. And we'd already been having discussions about how to fix that. We were struggling financially as a business. It sucks to say that as an accountant, right? But I was constantly worried where my next payroll was coming from. Like, where was I going to find that money? It was a constant grind. And then COVID happened and we weren't sure how our clients would be affected. We weren't sure how we would be affected. So I went ahead and applied for a PPP loan. Honest to God, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. Having that tiny little bit of cushion allowed me for 5 seconds to stop finding $1 for payroll and focusing on mentoring my staff, putting my structure in place and really focusing on our ideal clients. Y'all, in the 2 years since then, game changer. I just realized today that I actually need tax planning and I plugged my information into my tax planning software. Holy crap. I'm making I'm not rich, right? But I'm making so much more money than I realized I'm making because we made these changes. We price more competitively. Not competitively. We price what we're worth now.
Right.
And it's like
stop there. You don't price competitively. You price what you're worth. Unpack why you corrected yourself there. That's a very astute correction.
Yeah. So I don't want to compete with all the local people. I don't want to compete with H&R Block and Liberty Tax and TurboTax and the mom and pop CPA down the street who still charges $150 for a tax return. Those aren't the people I want to be competing with. I want to be competing with the people who are focused not just on top line revenue, but on that bottom line revenue, right? It's not what you make, it's what you keep. How many times have you said that to your own clients, but then you forget about that in your own
Doctor,
business?
heal thyself. Yes.
Yes. And once I made that shift, and once I started changing our pricing, as an example, we doubled our base price for a single 1040. So those orphan 1040s where you get once a year client, you don't.
Do you mind sharing your actual pricing?
Yeah. So it used to be $250 was our absolute minimum, right? That's crazy.
It is so
I have
low.
rent, I have staff, you know, and it could be that they just had one W-2, whatever it was, that $250 got you a 1040 in one state. So low. So before this last tax season, I said, enough is enough. Our rock bottom minimum is $500, which in my opinion, if you're working with an experienced person, is still low, but it's
still
literally
cheap.
doubled. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's just for the 1040. We charge for schedules A, B, C, D, E, F. But for some of our clients, that was a pretty significant increase. And so heading into that policy change, I knew we were going to lose clients, but that was the goal, right? I want fewer clients, higher revenue, more sanity, more peace. So we doubled our base price and we switched to making everyone pay upfront for tax prep. So we switched to a fixed price tax model, which has been successessl. We learned a couple things. There were a couple of clients that we underpriced, a couple we overpriced.
And did you quote that pre-preparation, like in December-ish?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what Brandon Hall, one of my previous podcast guests. Have you ever found him on Twitter? Brandon Hall?
I follow him and I get his newsletter and all that.
Yeah, good. He's really wise about that. Did you get that idea from him?
No, I found him earlier this year.
Yeah, no.
I just knew.
Go ahead.
We were stuck in the grind of like, we were charging after the tax return was prepared, but before we transmitted. And we had a few people where we did all the work. They didn't like the result. And so they picked up their documents and left. Well, now we had done all that work and we didn't get paid. So I decided, among all the other things that I was sick and tired of dealing with, that was one of them. And so everybody was going to pay up front.
And you probably did underprice people, you said. And did you go back and say, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, we're going to have to charge you another $300 because XYZ?
We only did that in a few cases. For example, they started another side business that we didn't know about. So it's a whole new Schedule C, or they bought 5 rental properties when the previous year, or a rental property in the previous year, they didn't have any. So we couldn't have known that.
Well, they're probably going to lose them this year, but anyway, carry on.
But for the most part, we just stuck with our quoted fixed price and we have notes. So we're heading into the time of year where we're reviewing everybody's pricing and we'll adjust accordingly. There will probably be another fee increase because, again, my goal here is to cut down on the number of once a year clients. My goal is in the next 2 to 3 years, I'll be in a place where we are only doing tax returns for our accounting clients.
Yep.
We want that whole entire year-round relationship. I don't want to hear from you once a year. And part of that conversation includes you yelling at me because you owe taxes. Well, you didn't hire me for tax planning. So what do you want, right? Tax returns will be active. So I don't want those 1040. There are Liberty Taxes, H&R Blocks, and plenty of other, smaller tax.
And TurboTax for LLCs now.
Oh gosh, I can't, my head is going to explode.
That's going to be like salad days for people like you though, because a year from now or like 2 years from now, after it's actually rolled out and then the
notices start coming out.
Yeah, man, oh man.
Pricing, y'all. We have the ability to control our businesses. I knew that I was growing in the wrong way. I wanted to grow revenue, but at the time that meant growing the number of clients, and that's not what I wanted. So just making those 2 small switches on the tax side of our house.
How many clients are we talking about here, by the way, just so I can give context to people, if you don't mind sharing?
So we're pretty small. We only did about 400 tax returns previous to this year, and that number got cut down because a bunch of people left when we announced our new.
What were the end results? I mean, do you have the data on that?
Yeah.
You doubled your prices, and what percentage of clients did you lose?
So we had about 65% of our clients return. They signed the engagement letter, and that's when we collected payment. We sent them the engagement letter electronically and had a payment link embedded in that. So they had to pay right when they signed the engagement letter. So we had about 65 clients that we sent engagement letters to from the previous year, sign and pay. And we actually earned more in revenue this year from those clients than we earned last year from all of them.
Right. From just all of them, and then any others.
And then everyone new we added came in at the new pricing. So we definitely beat out last year. So from the same clients, it was more revenue, fewer clients, which was the desired effect. And that's a scary change to make, right? Everybody could have left.
And Well, but in reality, like you served those clients that remained even more effectively, even more like carefully with your sanity and like responsiveness and what have you. And they're probably even happier to pay those fees because they feel that difference, I'm
Yep.
sure.
We
Did any
got
of
a lot
them?
of really positive feedback from the people who stuck around.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And then
I
just
can.
mentally, for me and my staff, this has been my best tax season maybe ever. And
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of tax professionals who can say that. They're still coming off the
No, for
horror that
real.
was COVID years.
2022, I mean, if you look at tax Twitter, and honestly, we heard this from some of our clients too. I mean, worst tax season in a generation because of all of these shifts the IRS has made and the understaffing of the IRS, of course, that made lives really tricky. And but then all the code changes, what have you. But then just the stress level with clients. That's what I kept hearing is like a lot of people dealing with very stressed out clients. And I'm sure some of that is regional dynamics. Like the people that I heard that the most from were Californians. And I'm not surprised a little bit, just given some of the regulatory environments there and what have you, cultural. But you had the opposite experience.
I did. And let me tell you, some of it was mindset, right? Like the
Mhm.
changes were positive. Keep a positive face so your staff stays excited and not scared. Like you could be terrified inside, but you can't project that. But I have work-life balance for my staff is a huge priority for me. It's one of my core values. And so making these changes allowed me to, our tax office was only open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, all of tax season. We didn't work overtime. We closed, like if my main tax person had to be out for a doctor's appointment, we just shut the office, even though it was tax season. I've never been able to do that before. But the other thing is by changing to charging up front, and I use Right Signature for electronic filing, and that integration is through Stripe. So
Yep.
I pay Stripe fees, which some people don't like to do. For me, it's just a cost of doing business.
Oh yeah.
But every morning when I would get to my desk and check my email to see that email saying, you've got $7,658 heading to your bank account today.
That's better than a slap in the face.
I mean, talk about, for somebody who's revenue focused, talk about a way to get me excited to get out of bed.
Yeah.
It used to be, I dreaded having to get up and go back to my desk and work on taxes and argue with people about the fees and
Right. And then you've got to send out invoices and hope that you will actually get paid for the thing that you've already done.
Yep. To, hey, I've already been paid. Let me go ahead and deliver this service. Everyone's going to be happy. Huge difference.
Game
So
changer.
if you're considering changing to charging up front and you haven't done it yet, please, please, please do yourself a favor and just give it a go. You'll probably lose clients, but you're going to gain so much sanity that's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you do, as you had to do just in a few instances, but what I've talked to other practitioners, and actually this is how my tax person handles things. Like, I pay the upfront stuff, but if there's other things that come up, then I have to pay for it. And it's clear what it is. I'm like, okay, so be it. Annoying, but I love your work. So I'd rather keep my money, but I'd most of all, rather have you do my stuff. So I'm just talking about like, I think most of your clients carry that mindset. It's at least the kind of clients that you want to work with.
Exactly.
The ones that are like pros and recognize that a workman is worth his wages, his or her, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's a whole different reality.
The clients who left were the ones who were really upset about having to pay $500 and, put me on blast on my Facebook page. Like, how dare you charge $500? And I'm just like, bye. I mean, obviously I didn't put that in the Facebook post, but in my head, I'm just like, okay, you're exactly the kind of people we don't want to work with anymore.
Yeah.
So, see ya. Thank you for firing yourself so I didn't have to.
And I just want to speak maybe to those who are in the early stages of their practice right now to
Such a golden opportunity to get it right early. Don't be like me.
Yes. I mean, demand is high for good work right now. And especially if you've got, so this is where I'm going to put on my salesman hat for our stuff, especially if you've got effective marketing out there where like you are putting good content out into the marketplace and like your positioning is set up properly. You will not be hurting for clients. It's how do you want to operate your life? That's the main question. And you have all of the power.
Fixable. It's so fixable. My pet peeve is hearing accountants complain about how horrible their lives are and making no changes. It is insanity. That is the definition of insanity, right? Like repeating the same patterns and expecting a different result. And it's frustrating because we are all worth more than we're charging. I think I'm still worth more than I'm charging, but it was a great step in the right direction and it had the desired outcome. This was like my test phase, right? So now the model's been proven. And
Yep.
so now we continue forward. Like we keep
I,
making these updates.
I think you're going to continue to do it again.
It's amazing. I
Yeah.
went from not being able to make payroll to this year, I was able to take enough in distributions to buy a beach condo that
Wow.
my husband and I now own as a rental
What a
in
blessing.
less than 3 years. So
Wow.
in less than 3 years, the changes we made have me needing tax planning because my tax liability is crazy through the roof from before when I couldn't find a dollar to make payroll.
And is your husband in the military? Is that right?
He's a contractor for a hazmat cleanup company.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you're going to buy him out, right? Retire him?
I would love to make him my pool boy. That's the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to get a pool first. That's a side conversation.
I think you're headed in that direction, sounds like.
And it's, and the changes were big, but they weren't, it was a few small tweaks on the tax side. The accounting side is another conversation,
Sure.
Sticking to my guns, having processes and procedures in place and making clients follow them and eliminating the clients who can't. Same issues, just different processes.
Well, so that's part of your story. Let's kind of switch to the niche thing that you've found, because this was actually why you were on the stage at this event, is that you've landed sweet positioning within kind of your regional marketplace and maybe national. Is it national? It's mostly regional, right?
Mostly regional.
Yeah. So in the Southeast area, Mid-Atlantic, you are building like your own carve out among small law firms. And so how did you land there? What brought you? Was it just like you had one client that like was like, oh wait, I actually really like working with you. Are there more of you? Like what tell us that process.
Yeah, so I have kicked back and forth in my head the whole should I niche or shouldn't I niche, right? Everyone says the riches are in the niches, but I have historically avoided whittling my practice down to a niche. We look at it more of a revenue niche than an industry niche.
Sure.
So I was in a BNI group, which is a networking group. They're an international networking organization. And one of the members who joined was an attorney at a local law firm. Great guy. I ended up going to him. I was in a car accident and I hired him to handle my personal injury case. Mm-hmm. And we got to chatting and he's like, yeah, man, I really don't like working here. I'm thinking about going out on my own. And he had owned other businesses. And so I, of course, am like, everyone should be self-employed, right? Everyone should control their destiny. So I immediately jumped on that bandwagon, like, you should definitely quit and you should start a law firm. I don't care if you're ready or not. You should just do it. So to sweeten the pot, I offered him free rent.
Office space, right?
Yep, an office space within my office, free rent for 6 months. And we handled all of his IT structure. Like we just added him kind of our network with his own little login and took care of all the infrastructure, made it really easy for him to just start as a solo practicing law firm. And so he, of course, hired me. And he didn't know what software to choose. He knew what the firm used. He knew what he liked and didn't like. So I got to do some research and choose a legal software for him to use. We went with Lean Law, and I've not regretted that for even a second. Love that software. Got him set up on QuickBooks Online, got that integration going, fleshed out his policies and procedures.
So you didn't have lawyer clients too much, or like, to speak of. You might have one or two, but like nothing that
he was my beta.
Interesting. Okay, carry on.
He was my beta client. And yeah, so we came up with his time.
You just liked him as a person and how he carried himself and like, who he was. And you felt like he was somebody to be a cornerstone.
Yeah. And as an accountant, one of my strengths are processes, checklists, orderly. That's how we're able to service many, many clients. We have order and structure. And most law firms don't have order and structure. You would think they would, but they don't. They're all over the place. Each attorney wants to do things their own way. No one's following set processes. And so I was able to help him get all that set up. In the 3 years since then, he now has 4 attorneys. Like they've grown like wildfire. In fact, they've taken over my whole office. We have one little space that we share for my team meetings, but now they sublet the rest of my office from me because they're just growing like wildfire. So that kind of started my love for working with law firms. So it was kind of an accidental niche. I hadn't planned to work with law firms, but I had so much fun helping him get set up that I was like, and he's like, there are so many attorneys out there who hate working for their law firm and would love to go out on their own, but they don't know where to start. Okay, well, let me try to craft this, like start a law firm in a box kind of an offering. And I'm still refining that, but getting in front of people who want to start their own law firms, getting their tech stack figured out, getting their processes defined has become, and they tend to understand, they tend to be cheap. You have to haggle with them over pricing sometimes, but they at least understand the value of good professional services because they are professional service providers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't bulk as much at my healthy fees as some other types of clients do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been pretty rewarding. I would have to go through and count. I mean, it's not a huge niche for us number of clients wise, but revenue wise, it's solid. They're some of my best paying clients.
Right. And because they've got all kinds of different ancillary things that you're doing for
Trust
them.
accounting, that's a huge one, right? Trust
Yeah.
lawyers, if they run afoul of trust accounting rules, they'll lose their licenses. It's hugely important. And so you can charge a premium for that service. So that's a big one. If you're interested in law firms, brush up on trust accounting. What does that mean and how does it work? That's a big one.
Well, and then they become also like referral gold mines if they work with businesses at all,
Absolutely.
right? So like they need entity creation and bookkeeping for some new hotshot entrepreneur who's going to start his thing, and there you are.
It's been a great referral source for me. I stay away from anything that could even be remotely construed as legal. So I don't form LLCs for clients. I don't do any of that. To me, that's the practice of law. And there are a ton of accountants who offer that service, and it blows my mind. But it's an easy intro then, right? Like, especially for the one who sublets from me, I walk them down the hall, introduce them to the attorney, or flip side, they have somebody coming in for an LLC creation. And they're like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And he's like, hey, let me introduce you to this accountant. They walk him up the hall. We get to meet.
Okay. I know we're recording this on a podcast and I'm not going to hold you to it, even though this is going to be recorded and posted, but thought experiment idea for you. Because me, marketing entrepreneur guy, kind of my brain gets cranking. What if you created something to other accounting practitioners to help them help lawyers in their area get started? So not just pursuing lawyers, but systematizing this process, Andrea, to offer it to like area exclusive accountants in the different regions across the United States and let them experience what you've experienced by like having them, like equipping other CPA practitioners to then be the resource for.
Yeah, I love that.
Just an idea.
I love teaching. So
I know you do.
Accounting is like fun.
Well, but then you can like create your little tribe of like lawyer launching accountants, because I love this and it's so different. I've not heard any story like this before, Andrea, where like you've carved out your own niche because you kicked this guy off the cliff into entrepreneurship. And it is so fascinating that like it's worked so well. And I think it's because you dove into the details and didn't just sort of like, okay, I got your QuickBooks set up, go do the thing. But you actually like helped them create KPIs and tech stack and all the different things. And man, I wish that there was somebody like you for marketing agencies, right?
Yeah, and it's fun. It to me, it's not super complicated work. To the client, it's hugely complicated.
Oh, it's like
something
magic.
I can do easily because I just know how to do it. So it's kind
alchemy.
of a no-brainer.
It's literally alchemy. Like you are creating from nothing for these people.
Yeah, it's fun. Love it.
Yeah. That's so cool. Well, this has been really, really thought-provoking. And I know we're kind of coming up against kind of our time, but man, like, I guess the last thing that I want to hear from you, because this is something you spoke about, is proactiveness with clients. And obviously proactive tax planning is something that is a little bit buzzy in our world.
Yep.
But I will say, as again, a recipient, one of the things that I like to do with my clients and, when I talk to CPAs, is sort of be a third party that can reflect back to them their client experience, right? Because I'm not an accounting practitioner. I'm not a CPA currently. I'm not like seeing those kinds of clients, but I'm also your sort of ideal client in another sense, because I've got, a small business and a bunch of employees and the difference between having somebody come to me with ideas versus me having to like knock on the virtual or literal door of my accountant to get them to respond and react to shifts that might occur within my life. It's night and day. And I am blessed to work with a guy now who is a little bit more proactive, where like he like has created like entity structures for me and like, is going to be moving different things around with different entities, what have you. And it was his idea. And he came to me with it. And he's very expensive. He's $1,500 a month just from a tax planning standpoint. But I'm happy to pay that because of that proactivity.
Yep.
Because that's such a refreshing difference, even over anything I've experienced in the last 16 years of owning a business. And it seems like that's something that you sort of hit upon on an early stage. So what do you do to enable you to have the momentum to be proactive with your clients? Because they're not all just like in the same niche, like these lawyers, because that's one sub niche. I'd say that's what, 20% of your revenue with the lawyers.
Yeah.
So how are you able to be proactive with like all of your clients within a certain category of client?
So it's definitely a struggle, right? Sometimes it's, regular email blasts. We're like, hey, this new thing came along, or hey, this tax law changed, or hey, it's time to make your quarterly estimated tax payment. So some of them are the routine things that are easy to do en masse. But I try to remind clients that I don't know what I don't know. So I can reach out, and I've got ticklers to reach out to people at certain intervals to remind myself to do it.
Ticklers. Okay. So what does that mean? So do you like
reminders?
All right, no, but like what's your tech for that? What do you do for that?
So that's where we need to talk. Right now, I don't have a nice email blast system, so it's all done manually. I know, y'all don't.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't point the firing squad at me.
I'm not here to sell you, Andrea. That is something we can help you with. But
I actually talked about you in a mentorship group that I lead recently. So we're going to be talking.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
it's actually for Pronto Tax. But so I have those reminders and touch points that I can do to a mass group of clients at one time that still feels very personal to them because they weren't getting that before. But what I try to remind clients is, I don't know what I don't know. So I don't know you've had any life changes if you don't bring them up. I can periodically ask like, hey, what's changed in your life? If you bought a house, sold a house, got a rental, had a kid. But,
right, and that's standard.
Yeah. But it's helpful too, as a client, from the client perspective, to be a little proactive. I remind people, don't be afraid to reach out to me. This is why you have me. And one of the perks to changing my model, and we are moving to a monthly subscription base, even for taxes, instead of fixed fee upfront, we're moving to a monthly subscription for tax planning and tax prep. Part of that will mean extra touch points. By cutting down the number of clients that we have to reach out to, we're able to reach out to our existing people more often. So that's been a big switch. So if that's something you're looking to implement, I'm calling it white glove service. We want all of our clients to get white glove service. Well, if you're going to offer that like butler suite level service, you can't have 1,000 clients if you're a staff of 3 people, right? It doesn't work. Math doesn't work out.
Right.
So that's kind of our focus, cutting down the client list so that we can offer just over the top service, even to the people who sign up for our base tax planning and tax prep packages.
Well, and let me just, again, use this chance to anybody who's listened to all the way through this to really put it to the top of your priority list, to somehow add some automation that enables you to personally reach out, because I believe that is actually one of the greatest value adds that you can bring to a client. And even if, by the way, you don't have a great smashing idea that's going to save them $20,000, but if it's just like, hey, Mr. Jones, I was thinking about your companies and I just was wondering about your cash flow planning right now. How's that going right now? I've got this P&L, this monthly P&L, but and I could see, but I'm just wondering, what are the things that you're hitting? And just reaching to ask to a client those simple kinds of questions that like basically open the door for them to be vulnerable and to see you as like in their corner. Man, oh man, is that valuable?
And it's personal, and it sometimes opens up questions that they didn't even know to ask, right? Like, just like I said, I don't know what I don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And I think a lot of tax professionals forget that our clients are not as well versed in the tax or accounting space. So what feels like a dumb question to us is not a dumb question to them. They genuinely do not know, and they're supposed to be able to go to you to ask. And also, when you do that kind of outreach, like you mentioned with, hey, what's your feeling about your cash flow? Like, I can see the reports, but tell me, how do you think it's going? That can open up the opportunity to upsell. I hate to call it selling, but it could open up the opportunity.
Offer more value at a good fee.
Increase the scope of service and increase the fee accordingly. So lots of good things come out. So you're going to grow your bottom line just from your existing client base, just by doing that one outreach. Like it's kind of a no-brainer, but when you're in the grind and you're overwhelmed by number of clients, you can't see your way to get to that point. When you have 1,000 tax clients and you're a small shop, you don't have time to do those individual outreaches. So I would encourage you to think about ways to maybe scale back the number of clients and scale up the level of service. I think you're going to be a ton happier. I know you will be happier. Your families will be happier. You're going to probably find joy in your business again. Maybe not, but at least then you'll have a more sellable practice if that's the route you want to go.
Andrea, I'm sure other people have told you this, but I just want to paint a picture for you. 3-4 years from now, you've tripled, yay, quadrupled your fees in your practice, and you've culled your client list down so small that it enables you, and it's like still healthy. And it enables you to then go and be a lighthouse and a resource to our world, because I find you to be so sincere and so useful and clear and articulate and wise and pithy with your advice that I want to see you work towards, like, and I know this is in your heart in some way, but I want to see you continue to work towards kind of building your voice into our industry.
Love it.
I want to be a resource to you along the way as much as I can be, because I talk to a lot of leaders in our world, and there's some people who've just got that chip, and like they kind of came in, I might even fall into this category, came into the industry with a little bit more moxie than wisdom. And hopefully I like to think that I've built some wisdom over the years, but I will say that I came into our industry with a little bit more moxie than wisdom. There's a lot of those out there, right? And it's rare, and I think so refreshing for people to find someone who leads with wisdom and has a little moxie at the same time, you know? And I think that's you. I think that I think you've got a lot of wisdom to offer. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of a secondary empire develop for you.
Right. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's figure it out. But you've got some great people in your corner. I'm like number 15 on the list. So, but you know, feel free to reach out to number 15 on the list here.
I do.
So,
I'm gonna take you up on that. You might regret that.
No, I won't. No, I won't. You're a delight to talk to, and this has been really, really fun. So
yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh man, thank you. And I hope that everybody who's listening to this, like, takes a few key points, and I'm just going to reflect back, and feel free to interrupt. But number one, like, recognizing the worth of what you are providing to your clients and charging accordingly, and not being ashamed. I mean, I've had multiple guests in, the last 6 months on my podcast speak to this, Jackie Meyer, whom and Michelle Weinstein and others in our world that have been pounding this drum, and they're doing it because like only everybody like feels good after they do it.
Yeah.
Like, so the small percentage of 100 is of the people that do it don't regret it, right?
Look, real quick, y'all. I read this meme recently, and it was really powerful. I was moved by it. So I'm going to read it to you really quickly because it ties into this. The real flex is living a life others don't understand without feeling the need to explain yourself. A person who is okay with being misunderstood is a powerful person. So if you know you have to make changes in your practice, not everyone has to love it. Not everyone has to understand why you're doing it, but it's the ultimate flex to do it anyway.
Freaking man. Yep. Totally. And so but then also like going where the river takes you, like you did with your lawyer client, and like not being afraid to like really dive in and roll up your sleeves with a client and create a marketplace for your services that has now become like a serious line of business for you, and might even become like the primary line in the next couple of years.
I can see that happen.
Also not being afraid to make a big shift. Like you made a big shift when you laid aside the Liberty world, but then also you made a big shift when you started charging up front. And like, these are things that I think some of our people, in even our existing client base who are investing a significant sum in marketing and building their practice still haven't nailed. And people that I know we've served for, over a decade, that I've been like, come on, I'm not going to use names, but like, change your model. And they still don't. And there's just lots of reasons, lots of excuses.
I usually hear, well, my area won't support charging those kind of fees. Well, guess what? You don't only have to market in your area. What?
Right.
Like, hello.
Right. And not only that, but like, let's just be honest, Chesapeake isn't like the highest end of areas. You're in Chesapeake, Virginia, and it's very middle class.
Middle income America.
Very middle America.
Or less, yeah.
Yep.
We ain't Virginia Beach, so.
That's right. It's not McLean. So anyway, I love that. I love those takeaways. Really appreciate you, Andrea. This was really fun. So I'm going to put in the show notes, whatever format you're listening to this podcast. You should be able to find Andrea's LinkedIn profile, and you can connect with her there. Just tell her you listened to her on our podcast. Her website of her firm is going to be in there too. I'm not sure that there's anything on there that like would be helpful for you. I think the best thing to do is connect on LinkedIn, and you're also on Twitter, right, Andrea?
I am.
Okay.
I think it's
Awesome.
at Andrea MacD CPA.
Sweet. We'll put that in there too. And this was awesome. Good job. Thank you.
Thanks. So much fun. Hope you guys
Yeah.
learned something new today.
Oh, I know they did. All righty.